Welcome to Fear with Christine Spratley. Living like a head in charge, the podcast where Christine says fear, questions everything, and takes bold action. Christine Spratley is a former professional boxer, nanny, and 29-plus year corporate warrior turned founder of HBIC Advisors, where she is a public speaker and coach. She's been saying fear her whole life, many times without even realizing it. So tune in, spread the word, and get ready, because this isn't about aging with grace. It's about aging with mischief, audacity, and having a damn good story to tell.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Fuck Fear with Christine Spratley. And today, it's not we're going to do shots like we always do, but it's not your virgin one, but it's the first time that we've all done them together. Right, Josh?
Right.
Okay. So they've both got immortality. Well, actually, it's immunity. They think it's immortality, just like a guy. I will live forever if I drink this. Okay, you ready, guys?
Yes.
All right, bottoms up. You guys are slow. Ooh!
Oh, there was like a giant pepper pack.
Whoa, Josh. I'll grow some hair on your chest.
Oh, yeah.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, today you've awesome. Ooh, I'm still getting it. I'm still getting it, guys. So bear with me. The song that I had in my head this morning, this is so bad. When I woke up was It Girl by Elle King. I don't know if you know that song. I'm going to assume that you don't.
I don't.
It's, let's just say it's a little bit raunchy, but it is such a good song. It's so much fun. But I woke it up with my head, so I'm literally going to I had to do a check-in on for therapy today on my psychiatrist, and I'm like singing this song, going to therapy. It was so funny. It was just the dichotomy of that whole situation. But yeah, if you want to be an it girl. So what I'm going to talk about today is more along the lines of how do we, actually say fuck fear? What does that look like in action? And so as you're listening today, I want you to think about something as it hits you. Because again, I've said this before, if it hits you, it's because you have a belief about something. And it's either in conflict or it's in full alignment with that belief. And it's not a bad belief or a good belief. Just notice what you're believing and why that is, and kind of spend some time with it. So I believe, and Joe, I'd love to get your thoughts on this, but women are socially conditioned to fear taking up space, to fear being bigger than what they seem the norm is, than the male in the room. We're told to go be big. We are told we can have it all. We are told all of these things, but we are told to use our voice. Just don't use it on me. Just don't be too loud. And so we're always walking this tightrope of who. And I didn't really. I'm going to look at this twofold. One in your personal life and one in your professional. And I'll talk about professional first. I always, knew that we had to walk a different line. I mean, it just is obvious. And I was in a male-dominated industry, which was land development when I first started, and then also in site selection and land development and corporate negotiations in my later years. So I always knew that. I mean, it was pretty obvious. You read the room. We've talked about emotional intelligence. And I kind of grew up and got made my bones in Texas and in land development. And down there, it's just, it's darling and sweetheart and everything. But if you could show your chops, they'd let you sit at the table. And I didn't really start to fully understand that until I started really getting into the later part of my years, where I would get big and that would be too big. I would talk or I would present and it would be too much because they on the other side weren't able to handle it. It wasn't that it was too much. It's like I say, if I'm too much, maybe they need to go find less. And if I'm too big for this stage, maybe I need to go find a bigger stage that allows me the space of that. And so, but I think I always became aware of that, especially in business, But I also became aware of it in personal relationships, not just with men either. Again, I remember, there were times, especially when I started talking about wanting more from my relationship and potentially moving on from my relationship, my marriage. And it was good to a point. And then it was like, oh, no. You this is kind of like, and I had certain friends that were like, this is your role. This is the role that you've taken. And I was like, I understand that, but I need more. And I've said I need more, and I've given. And it was almost like, don't get that big, And I remember one of my friends literally was like, I'm worried about you. And it was really bizarre for me because everybody else around me was like, yeah, you need to breathe. You need to go where there's space for you. And what's interesting is I didn't leave because I really wanted to. I left because I had to. And I've talked about this before, because I started becoming different, and I started becoming smaller inside and smaller outside until I couldn't disappear anymore. It was not possible for me to push anything down anymore. And I think a lot of women, and I've talked to women, and unfortunately feel this way. And it's not just a feeling, it's the reality. I've got guy friends who have wives that are dynamos, and they run into this shit in their work, and they're at the tops of the ladders, and they still are running into this. So it's one of these things that I think a lot of people don't understand is in the fabric. Get big, but don't get too big. Laugh, but not too loud, or that cackle laugh, or that bitch laugh. Or do you know what I mean? I mean, we were talking the other day about the documentary on cussing, which we'll have on here, and the whole behind the word bitch, and just things, and use it, but use it good, and and because you never want to be called a bitch, and frankly, my title is head bitch in charge. Like, I'm bringing it on, and I'm owning it, I'm reclaiming it and what it means, and I'm going to take up as much space. So today, when you listen to this, I want you to think about, and this is a gut check, where you know you want to take up space, like where that is. There's it's a desire in you to take up space, or maybe the better question for you is, where are you confining? What box are you squeezing yourself into? And I use the analogy when I'm trying to get into those damn jeans, and I'm jumping into them, and I'm jumping up and down, and so I can shimmy myself into them, and then I walk around, hold my gut in, hoping they'll expand a little bit, and then don't eat anything that you really want. I mean, that is like what it's like. And where in your life, and it may be just breathing a little bit, it may be just a little bit of space you want, but I just really want to ask you to do that. And then I'm going to walk through ways that you can take the framework to go into that. But while there is a cost of being too big, of offending, of people walking away from you, literally and figuratively, of the risk that you take sometimes in work and speaking up or speaking out, and the younger generation. It's weird saying the younger generation. I'm 54. I'll be 55 this year, and still feel like I'm too young to say the younger generation. But there's this my mom's kind of, notion of that. And it just doesn't feel right. But what's really wild is if we look at the cost of not getting big, of staying silent, of basically becoming smaller and smaller until you just are disappearing. That cost of who you are at your core, your health, your spiritual growth, all of that gets so small and so damaged. That is the cost of staying small. That is the cost. and there's no way out. The stats are incredibly vivid on this. This is just at work. Okay, 50% of all women who endure workplace discrimination or suffer from higher risk. 50%. Okay, and we're not talking about like workplace discrimination where you even just can't get the job or get fired from the job. We're talking about those microaggressions that happen on a daily basis when you're talked over, when someone takes your idea in a meeting. When this happened to me, I had worked on a project, this proposal forever, and I had partners review it, and I had there was a partner in the meeting that had reviewed my proposal that morning to prep me and say, here it is, yeah, good job, all right, we're going to do this. He's going to back me up, right? And we get in this meeting, we go through the meeting, and then I'd given it to our leader and to the executive, and he had set it down, and I was like, hey, and I'd gotten the balls to be like, hey, and we're at the end of the meeting, he still hadn't brought it up. So I was like, you need to, hey, and I won't mention his name, but it begins with a P, and rhymes with Saul. And he grabs it, and because I made eye contact, basically, was like in front of everybody, like, hey, and there were two women in there, myself and another woman who was his secretary, basically. And when I say that, and I put quotes around his secretary, I say it like that because that's how they viewed her. Now, what she was the oil in the system that made the system go. I mean, if you wanted it done, she ended up getting it done. And that's how vital. But it was, she was the assistant. She was more than the assistant. She was the thing that greased the skids. So I was like, hey, Saul, what about da-da-da? And he picked it up, and he literally did this. And you guys that are watched it, you can see it. But if you're listening to it, you can't. And he flipped through it, and he just flipped through it, and then he set it down. He didn't even. I mean, he didn't even really. I mean, look at it. He just kind of fanned it, and he set it down. He's like, oh, and he just went over, and that partner didn't say shit. The other people in the room didn't say shit. And I'm talking about those aggressions, those discriminations, because I guarantee you, if that had been some of the guys in the room, that wouldn't have happened. And I'm not saying, it just wouldn't have. But when we endure workplace discrimination, 50% of us suffer from higher risk of heart disease and hypertension. That's 50%. Okay, so go to a group tonight with your girls or just out and look at the room and go 50% of them. Next time you're in the work environment, just take a stab, walk outside your office or in a group setting and look at it and go 50% of us. Okay? It could be up to 50% because I'm not saying everybody gets workplace discrimination, but the high percentage in that room. Okay? And then 60% of all women report workplace stress caused by anxiety and or depression. Now, this is 60% of the whole room, okay? So say, all right, well, not everybody in the room that are women in my workplace are not being discriminated against, but 60% of all women have stress, and all of us that work have workplace stress. But the causes are anxiety and depression. And again, that's not a fault. We've talked about this. It's not the fault of necessarily us and our anxiety because we're all screwed up. It is our environment to a degree. And then 70% of all women, 70%, I read this wrong. 70% higher risk in all women, okay, of cancer and a 100% increase in early death for women who suppress emotions. This is all taken from Jennifer Cox's book, Women Are Angry. You can kind of see, Joe, why we're a little bit pissed off. I mean, if 70% of men had an increase in cancer and 100% increase of early death, we're not talking it's an increase in early death because we suppress emotions. That's the repercussions of not taking up space. And that not taking up space a lot of times is caused by the fear of taking up space. And then this is one of my favorites, and this is what I'm talking about. This is why it's so hard. This is why the fear comes in, is the study that was done that shows, and again, it's in her book, 75% of all women say expressing anger at work or disagreement, making those waves at work results in backlash or negative consequences, which then typically leads to discrimination, which then causes anxiety, which then causes stress, which gives us anxiety and depression, which then we suppress. And guess what? We typically have a 100% rate of dying early. I just say all that because this isn't an emotional thing in the sense of, oh, we're just being crazy. These are numbers. This is your life. So as you listen to this, think about your environment and where you're getting small. And we've talked about this before, and then you brought it up. Rhea had brought it up on a topic quite a few times about listening to your body and your body reacting. And you said that the other day about your body and how it reacts. And when I say that to you as a listener, you probably thought of something. And then you reacted to it, and your body reacted. And then you probably, I don't know if you said this, because I typically do this in coaching, and I have a couple different reactions. They'll have that first thought, and then they'll be like, oh, no, not that one. It's really okay. That's really okay. I'm big on that stage. It's the thought that says, no, don't go there. And their body goes, ooh, and then it gets tight. Or they go, yeah, this is where I'm getting screwed over, and this is where I'm getting small. And man, I wish I could have that. And it's almost visceral in their body, the reaction of that. And so saying fuck fear is not reckless. Okay, that's what I'm saying. I respect the fear, but it's sacred rebellion. It is this glorious defiance about it, about refusing to not take up space. And so how do we do it? How do you go there? And there's I have to be honest, there is the Avett brothers that I hadn't, you probably know them, Joe, but I hadn't really been into their music. I have a friend who enlightened me to it, but there is this song called February 7. And it says, in this line, there's this thing, and it's called, it says, there's no returning to the spoils once you've spoiled the thought of them. There's no falling back to sleep once you've awakened from the dream. And so what that is the first thing is to tell on yourself. To when I said that to you about where are you getting smaller? Where are you tiptoeing around? Who are you tiptoeing around? Tell on yourself. Tell your girlfriends. Write it down. Put it out there. Get it out. Even if you never do anything with it, just get it out there. Admit it to yourself, but then tell on yourself. And I've found that when I do that, a couple things happen. Because none of what I've done in my life, even though it seems like I jump in, I've typically thought about it. I've done the mental masturbation in it for quite a while. And, but I've started to tell on myself. I mean, my career change, I was looking for a career change from my career 2 years after I was at EY, which was, 11 years before I left my career, my industry. And I just stayed and I stayed because I wasn't sure. I wasn't sure what it was. So again, I'm not saying that immediately everything changes, but I'm saying talk it, speak it, put it out there. And guys, this is the same for you. This works for you too. Get it out of your head. Get it out of you've heard me talk about in the episode, You're Only as Sick as Your Secrets. Put it out there. It's the secret that you don't want to tell that you're getting small, that you feel small, that you feel that you're tiptoeing, that you can't take up space. And I'll tell you where this happens. if you're having a hard time understanding or relating to this, I'll give you some examples in my work, and then I'll give you some examples in my personal life. Example in work, hovering over an email before you send it. And I'm not talking when you spout off. I'm talking you've written a good email and you're just tied up in knots hovering over it. I'm talking about, at some of my worst, walking out of a meeting and going to the bathroom and bawling. And no one at all saying anything in the meeting or afterwards. I remember that the meeting that I talked to you about, I called Jackie afterwards and she was like, "Hey, are you okay?" And I said, "No." And I was at the airport and I was just crying. Those are the big ones. The little ones are, you're sitting there, and this is a big one for me. And it took me a while to understand it. I'd be in a meeting, and I spoke about this in the Women's Manufacturing Summit for women in manufacturing last year. I gave a speech on, and this was part of it, was you're in a meeting and they got it wrong. They got it wrong. And you're waiting for someone else to figure it out. You're waiting. Even just the hesitation is a sign of, I gotta wait. Just maybe they'll catch up, instead of being able to just go, yeah, no, this is what it is, guys. And for me, when I first started noticing this, I assumed I messed up. I assumed that 2 + 2 was not 4. I assumed that somehow I had done the math wrong, and me being dyslexic, I've always okay. But again, or it would be a topic or this, or they couldn't see the solution. Or it would be, another one would be, they would be like, "Oh, it's so complicated." I'm like, actually, it's not. You just have to do boom, boom, and boom. And I would wait. And then I would sometimes meekly in the beginning raise my hand and say, well, and I would say, would we want to consider, and we've used language like that. I'm okay using some of those languages. But when I have to start curtailing the language in which my delivery happens just to deliver the solution, I'm getting small. Those are some ways. I remember having to do reviews at EY where basically it's this big, long kind of dissertation of everything you've done over the year, but it's anything that you've accomplished or the team has accomplished, and you have to take credit for everything. Like, it has to be, I did this and I said that and I accomplished. It could be like you managed a team that did it, but in that dissertation, you had to write like you did it. That was extremely hard for me. And I felt very guilty. And I felt like I was braggadocious and so where is this coming from? Why can I not state the facts? Because I want to make sure that people don't think my intent is wrong or that I don't get things wrong. And again, so if you're having a hard time finding a place where you're small, those might be some areas at work. Personal life.
Great leadership doesn't start with a title. It starts with bold action. Christine Spratley works with high-performing teams that include anything from boards, councils, and project teams to cut through the noise, craft clear strategies, and most importantly, implement them. No fluff, no endless planning cycles, just real, fearless execution. With humor, practical insights, and a fearless approach, after working with Christine, leaders will step up, take action, and make shit happen. Book her now at christinespratley.com.
I will tell you an example, and this is hard for me to say, but in personal life, I like, when I'm with someone that's my significant other or whatever, I like to, dress for them and, I like them to like what I look like. And I like my nails and, I do my nails now and I've always done my nails. But I came home one time and I'd done my nails and done my toes. And I was like, "Hey, what do you think?" And the comment wasn't bad in the sense, he's like, "Ah, okay." He goes, "But you know who it reminds me of?" And he stated a woman's name who I know he hates. And I know, and I didn't really like her either, But he's like, yeah, he's kind of got that kind of woman feel. And and I didn't go, well, fuck you. I like red. And I like these, this. I went and I never wore it again. I put it on my toes, but I always wore more neutral, more, bubble bath pink and stuff like that. And I loved it. My nails look great. And I always said, but that, and then I also didn't want to have too much red nails at work. Like that is just, and I always said, well, it's a conservative environment. Again, come on. If I'm saving you, if I'm negotiating a deal and I'm getting you $30 million, it doesn't matter what color my nails are. But I was getting small. I had this happen recently with a woman, and I walked in and I said, oh my God, your lipstick looks great. And it was just red. She's got these tiny lips and she's this little petite thing and it was just out there. And she said, yeah, I was going to wear it to this deposition the other day, but I didn't know how I'd look and I didn't want to come. And again, don't get small. So think about where you're getting small and then write it down. Say to your girlfriend, say, hey, I really like this. And I am not doing it because of, I can't. Well, why can't you? So tell on yourself. That's kind of where it goes. And again, whether that's a good friend, and I tend to do it more than once because I'm fortunate enough now to have planted people in my life that really show up for me. And so they'll ask me. And so sometimes so-and-so will be on vacation or will get busy in their life. And so they won't have time to kind of connect. But Inya will. Inya's around and she'll be like, hey, she'll text me, hey, blah, 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 blah. You said you were going to, work on this or this was important to you. How's that going? And if I'm doing the same thing, staying small, getting smaller, then they tend to go, hey, you remember you said you wanted to be talk up more at work or you wanted to change your work environment or whatever, but tell on yourself. And then people, this is a key thing. And this is one of those things where I just really, because people always want to go, well, what do you do next? And you're not going to like this. It's total kind of consultant speak, but it's very true. And follow me through on this. Is you've already assessed the situation. So whatever you think you're small on, okay? You may say, I need to get a new job, okay? But right now I can't, blah, 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 blah. Okay. That's fine. But then take the next best action. What is the next best action? Sometimes it may be quitting a job and going to another. Otherwise, it may be looking at jobs that you might be thinking about. It may be getting someone to help you with your resume. It may be what is your next best action? We've all gathered data on this. And that next best action could be very small or it could be very big. But the great thing about it is that when you get done with taking the next best action, it lines you up for the next best action. I wrote, and you've heard me say this, I wrote a business plan, completed it in January 2024. I'd been thinking about it, and I was taking the next best action through this. I just started writing down, I really don't like my job. Then I tell a few people. And then I started sitting in on workshops on getting a new job and how do you find out what you love to do when you don't know what you love. And I had done sort of all, and I was just plugging along. And then I was in a women's network group and I told them, I think I want to go coaching. Again, I was telling myself on this thing because I knew the stage was too small for me. I knew I didn't want to be there anymore. And I was so fearful that I couldn't leave because we had kids in college and all this stuff and mortgage and blah, 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 blah. But I just kept doing it. I kept doing the next thing. And it lined me up. And as I got further along, I got more and more clarity, right? But I wasn't stagnant. And this is what it was not. It was not giving 110% more into my job. it was going, I'm going to give what I need to give in my job, but I'm going to also keep pedaling and growing this. I'm going to keep watering this on the side until, okay? But I kept them both going. And in January, I said, okay, I'm quit doing this. I'm going to put it down on paper. I'm going to write a business plan. And it had a timeline of 2 years. You've heard me say this before. 2 years, July 2nd, 2026. But I had it. I had my services. I had what I wanted to give. I wanted to do this. And then I would do some consulting on the side, back and forth, blah, 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 blah. But I had the words for it, right? And then in May, I had a call with someone who's a friend, and she also we used to work together, and she works in the industry that I used to be in. And she said, hey, why don't you come and do what you do there for them, for us, but just do it as a contract? And I said, I don't know, because it really doesn't get me where I want to do, because I'd written that business plan. Otherwise, I would have just gone from one frying pan to the other. And but I had the business plan. But then the second part of that is I was able, because I had the business plan, I said, I can come in and I can be your PMO. I can be your PMO for all your projects. And I can go into any project. I don't want to run all of them. I don't want to do your full site selection, but I can come in and I can do A to Z. I can train your staff, or I can go see with the governor. Like, I can do all of that. I've been doing it forever. What does that sound like? And because I had that business plan, I was able to take that. And then they were like, yeah, we'll do it. And so immediately I had this stuff. But again, it's because I took the next best action. Now, do I do that exact same thing today? Has my business plan changed? Yes, I'm a speaker now, and I do this, and I still do that. If you want to hire me, I'll take the money. But I had those things, and so it's the next best action. Again, sometimes it's really small. Sometimes it's really big. But if I keep taking the next best action, there's two things that happen. One, I move forward towards what I want. And two, I get feedback on it. That is huge. Feedback of, ooh, I don't like that. This is one of the things that I did. When I was in the Women's Network, I had decided, okay, I'd gotten a list of all these different things that I thought I wanted to do. And I tried them on. You've heard this before probably, Joe, where you try on, you're like, I don't know so you start interviewing people. You start interviewing people that are actually doing it. And you go, what do you love? What do you hate? What's really a day like in your life? I mean, I had everything on there because I had done this survey, and people gave me back everything from sports, working in sports, to being a lobbyist, to being in a public or PR, crisis management, stuff like that. And I interviewed a ton of people, a lot of women. I interviewed a lot of women in there. And I was like, ooh, I thought I wanted to do that. No, I do not want to do that. Ooh, I thought I wanted to do that. Ooh, no, I want to. And that's how I came up with coaching, because that's really where I thought I wanted to do as my main. And I do it. I'm a coach as well. But again, that led me to be able to gain that information about what I wanted to do, what I didn't want to do. And when I wrote my business plan and put it out there, now I have something to go back to and go, ooh, that didn't work. But if I'm never taking any action, none, except the same action that makes me feel small, then I'm always going to stay there. If I'm never doing any little thing that gets me to a place where I feel like I can get big. And I'm going to tell you, the second half of Fuck Fear, doing it scared, I was scared the whole way. I'm scared now. I was talking to a friend this weekend, and she's like, she's in a really bad spot. Not a bad spot. She's in a really bad spot. And she's like, but you've got your shit together. And I go, oh, are you kidding me? If you looked at my finance, like, seriously, I look like I have my shit together. But what's your shit together? It just means you know where all your shit's at. It just still means you got shit. And I was scared shitless, But because I've taken the next right action and I've had experience, I'm a little bit less scared on things because I know I'm resilient and I know where to go. I know how to fill out the forms when I need help. But doing the next thing, the next best action. And this is one thing I remember very specifically, is that when I'm waiting for the right action, I'm waiting for absolute clarity and perfection so I can control the situation and it'll be gone. We talked about this with closure, right? Like I'm waiting for it to happen, like the sign. And a lot of times I text this to a woman this morning and she's like, well, God has a plan. I said, yeah, he's waiting for you to write it. Just write it. And then he'll give you feedback on it. You know, like go, execute. So again, start the next best action and bounce it off on people if you want, people you trust. You know, get out there. But you get that feedback, and that feedback will tell you if there's a better action to take, another next best action to take, a change in course, a pivot. The third thing is build your tribe. Get you a tribe. And I'm not talking about the wishy-washy friends that come and go. I'm not talking about the ones that suck up all your time and your energy. I'm talking about the ones who remember the little things about what you are striving for, that ask you about them, that don't necessarily go, how are you doing? But like, hey, what'd you ever do about that? Not in an accusatory way, but that are seriously curious. And if you don't have any, go find them. There are people out there. And I'm not talking just women. Women saved my ass in so many, and you've heard me talk about my OG mugshot crew. These women are like the gangsters of my life. Like, they're the families. Like, they're there. But there's also a lot of men that have, through my life, that have been in my tribe, that have given me feedback, that have said, hey, yeah, you need to get the hell out of here. I mean, you've heard me talk about Brandon going, yeah, Christine, you know, Saul told you couldn't sell, and you bought that bullshit. It's all bullshit. You can do it just fine. Just do it your way. Get bigger. And again, get your tribe, but start understanding that if you don't have your tribe, when I didn't have my tribe, this is what it was. I was either blocking the relationship because I didn't want to, they were real, and they would ask me about shit that I was scared shitless to do, that I had mentioned and let slip out. And so I started weaning those people off. When I started getting smaller and smaller, I started weaning those off. And what I started doing was I'll just get really involved with my family, and I'll just get really involved with my husband, and I'll just get really involved with our activities and my work, okay? And so it was a real controlled environment for me to stay the same. For there to be no outside input of, hey, you look a little bit off today. And you've looked a little bit off for the last 4 times that I've talked to you, and I've only talked to you in the last 3 months 4 times. So, like, what's going on? There wasn't any of that because I had slowly started to not communicate with my mugshot crew. So, again, get yourself your tribe. And if they're not interested in where you want to go and who you are and want to become, why are they in your tribe? I really had to ask myself that. Because I've got, there's this thing of networking, and I was never big into a ton of friends, but there's this thing of I'm always missing out, or not I'm missing out on fun, but like I'm missing out on friendships like I should be part of. And what I've realized is that when it comes to this stuff, there's networking with work and everything, but when it comes to this stuff, and really facing fears and walking through the fire, scared shitless, I don't need 20 people. I don't need 20. I don't need 20 friends. I don't need 20 opinions. I need a few women that have done that shit and a couple guys to go, yeah, this is where the men are going to come in on your life and try to screw it up. Seriously. I know that sounds, I don't care how it sounds. But literally, I will take one woman over 5 guys any day. A woman who's been through the fire. And again, Joe, I don't know if that hits you, but the way, especially when the fire is there, like someone who's really been through it. When I made the call to a friend of mine who I hadn't spoken to and like really spoken to in many years about me leaving, a flip switched on in her head. And she said, you need to do boom, boom, boom. Because I was crying and I was really upset. She said, you need to do boom, 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 boom. I don't care how you do them. And it got me into the next best action. But like, you need to take care of yourself. And it wasn't this, we're going to hold hands and sing kumbaya. They led me through the fire until I could get my feet and I go, okay, what am I doing? And they didn't make decisions for me. That's another thing. Your tribe doesn't have to, they don't make decisions for you. But they have gone through the shit. And I don't want, when I'm in the trenches, I don't want some pansy ass in there with me. I don't want somebody going, well, breathe. Okay, breathe comes after, give me, like do something. I want, or it's breathe, now go do this, girl. Or this is going to hit you. I remember talking to one of them. It's like, yeah, this is going to hit you upside the head in about a month. And I was like, yeah, okay, whatever. I got this. Okay, got this. Sure enough, in a month, I'm sitting there crying on the kitchen floor. What the hell did I do? What the hell? Watch my credit score go down. Watch my bank account go down. What the hell did I do? Am I going to do this? But they are going to. I'm going to tell you the story. So my financial planner is a woman. Her name is Pam. And I had met with her back in May. My husband and I had met with her at the time back in May of 2024 and he didn't want to use that firm. And I was like, fine, whatever. And then when we split, I was like, I need some help. And so I called her and told her what was going on. And she told me, hey, this is, you're going to need to tighten the belt. You're going to need to do this. And then she said something to me, and she said, she said, you're going to start going through some things where you're going to doubt everything that you do. You're going to second guess every step that you take or took, and you're going to make mistakes. You're going to make a ton of mistakes. You're going to spend, especially we're talking about finance, you're going to spend things that you shouldn't. You're going to get in contracts that you shouldn't. But she says, when that hits and that fear hits, and this is really important, when that fear hits, she said, I want you to remember all of the women and all the things that they've told you and how much that they believe in you, that they are guiding you. And I want you to remember my words that you are good, that you're going to make it through this. And we're going to get you to a place where you want to be. I will take that shit every day of the week. Those people I want in my tribe. And then after that, it was a swift kick in the ass of you got to get your finances straight. But again, get yourself a tribe. And then the last thing, you've also heard me talk about this, is talk to your friend Grace. And what I mean by that, if you've never heard me say this in my episodes, I have a friend Grace. We did mutual coaching at Deloitte. Amazing coach, amazing mom. Just amazing businesswoman. And she doesn't do coaching at Deloitte. She does that on the side at Deloitte and they have a coaching community there. But so she does her main job, which is put out fires for everybody else and make sure shit doesn't blow up. Amazingly well, she does that. But we were talking one day and she was coaching me and she says, okay, Christine, I want you to picture yourself in a chair across from you. Just look at the chair, because I had a chair in my office. And she said, I want you to see that chair and I want you to pretend that you're in that chair, but you're not there. It's your friend. How would you talk to your friend about what you're going through? What words would you use? What grace would you give them? She goes, I talk to me, which her name is Grace, my friend Grace, as if I were my friend Grace. So I literally do. I talk to myself because I can get really bitchy, mean, not like nice bitchy, like mean bitchy to myself and real critiquing in my head. Oh, you shouldn't have done this. Oh, you spent on this. Or, oh, you missed this business development opportunity. Or, oh, why, what? And I guarantee you, if it's my friend that I'm talking to, I'm not coming at it with a why, you dumb. It's all right, what did you learn? Okay, where do you need to go? You're good. You got this, girl. Come on, girl. Let's go. All right. Cry like a baby. It's okay. This hurts. It would be this encouragement from the soul. It would not be this condescending, judgmental hellfire and brimstone language. It just wouldn't. That's not how I talk to my friends that I truly care about. And so talk to friend Grace. Treat yourself like you would treat your friend. I always say this. I wish every woman would treat themselves and talk to themselves and love themselves as much as they treat their children and are the mama bears for their children or their besties. If we did that for ourselves, could you imagine the shit we would do and the fuckery we would get into and the things that you would do? And if your face lit up and your eyes brightened when I said that, you're too small right now because you can go do those things. You really can. Why not? And this is the other thing about when I talk to my friend Grace now, I always say this to her and to myself really is I get to go do anything. I don't necessarily have to do it well, but I get to have that experience. I get to live. And I just really want you to remember that you are enough. And you've heard me say this 1,000 times, and I can't drive it home enough. There's that poem, After a While, by Jorge Borges, and it talks about after a while when you say goodbye and you learn that you really can endure, you really are strong, and you really do have worth. You really can endure, you really are strong, and you really do have worth. And with every goodbye, you learn and you learn. So say goodbye to the small stage. Say goodbye to being small. Fuck fear. Doing it scared. You're still doing it. You're still walking through the fire. Anybody who tells you they ain't scared, I don't know, their head's on right. Life's scary. Life's a contact sport. Put on your pads and play. One of the things that I say to people that there are some people in my life that I just think are just these bursts of suns. They're just, ugh. And I can't wait. I can't wait for them to just jump on there and go, ta-da! And because they have this love and this light and this fierceness about them. And they're all different. Like one's way business and one's way like levitating over there on the mountains and everybody in between. But they have this energy and you can just feel it, right? And they're just, I can't wait. I can't wait. But I say this to them. And when I text them, I'm like, go spread your light. We need it. We need your light. So go step into your spotlight. The stage is meant for you. You are the hero of your own story. And you really can endure, and you really are strong, and you really do have worth. And typically, I only understand that when I've walked through, and I'm walking through and going, oh, wow. I can endure this pain because I'm experiencing it. Oh, wow, I am strong enough to use my voice because I'm using it. Oh, wow, I do have worth because I recognize it. And this is where I belong. So, ladies, gentlemen, don't go small. You're meant to be big. We need your light. Until next time, Tubbs.
Thanks for tuning in to Fear with Christine Spratley. Living like a head in charge. Don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, tell her what topics you want to hear, and share this episode with someone who could use a pantry full of boldness in their life. Remember, life isn't about aging with grace. It's about aging with mischief, audacity, and having a damn good story to tell. So show up, take action, and keep saying fear.